Mission of the Mayo. You bring it back to party to all of these longest scab out to the weak, so build it and then burn his way.
Okay, so here's the thing about Malayalam cinema that keeps pulling me back to it, because it truly understands that entertainment and emotional honesty aren't enemies. I mean, with the simplest of stories, they can easily make someone laugh for 2 hours and still leave viewers with something real. And this film, for all its messiness and all its overcrowding, understands that instinctively. When I first heard about this film, my immediate reaction was Basil Joseph and Tovino Thomas in the same film, and with a director who had co-written Minnal Murali. That combination sounds truly exciting. And when you actually sit down to watch the film, and the first thing you see is not only fun, not same montages of hostel corridors and that bad canteen food. You see a tragedy, a stampede. And that's when I realized that this film knows and understands how to weave emotions and entertainment together into this space of genre that many other films fail to grasp. So is it a perfect film? Absolutely not. There are stretches where you might feel impatient. There are characters who deserve so much more than they got. There are moments where you can almost feel the film physically retreating from its own depth, like it got too close to something raw and then panicked. But here is what I will say, and this matters more to me than any technicality, that the film is really honest. It's not trying to be something it is not. It knows what it is. A loud, chaotic and a very moving film about why some things are worth the effort of reviving. And it sells that idea with enough warmth and enough genuine craft that by the time you reach the climax, I assure that you'll not really think about any flaws in the movie. And that's something which is actually quite hard to do. Opening of the film. I think this is the most underappreciated decision in the entire film, given the genre that this movie picks up. And I want to talk about it first because I think it shapes everything that comes after. Most films like this, the youth entertainers, the campus comedy, they usually open by seducing you. Basically by putting on some peppy music, show some college faces, make you feel nostalgic before you have even met anyone. And it usually works every time. Athiradi refused to do that. And what we get instead is the genuinely unsettling opening where a college festival that turns catastrophic, lives lost, and then the whole institution shutting down something it loved because of what happened. And more importantly, a person who has been quietly broken by it ever since. Now, why does this opening matter so much? Because it completely reframes what this film is about. On the surface, the story is about a college boy trying to bring back a college festival back to life. But that opening alone tells you that it's actually about grief, guilt, and a specific kind of love that makes that boy fix something for someone. And the film earns this emotional payoff in the final act, specifically because it had laid that groundwork right at the start. The brother arc. I want to talk about Vishnu Agastya character because I think this is where the film's real soul lives. And it honestly operates so quietly that you can miss it if you are caught up in the louder stuff around it. This character doesn't have the biggest role, but every time he appears, there's this weight to him. This sense of someone who has been carrying something heavy for a very long time and has simply stopped expecting it to get lighter. He is not dramatically broken. He's just slightly hollowed out in a way that the film trusts the audience to notice without underlining it specifically. And his brother Basil Joseph's character Samkutty has a single mission. That is to make that burden lighter and to allow his older brother to finally put it all down. That's the whole film's emotional engine. And the best part is how the film refuses to be sentimental about all of this in the conventional way. There's no big speech, no cathartic breakdown where everything gets resolved in an embrace. The emotional resolution is quieter than that and more honest. It's actually in a look, in a moment, and in the simple fact of something existing again that was supposed to never exist. That's the kind of emotional writing that stays with the audience after the credits. Basil, Samkutty and Tovino's Sreekuttan. What Basil Joseph's character is doing in this film is genuinely difficult to pull off. Playing someone who's deliberately embarrassing requires a very specific kind of fearlessness. Samkutty is cringeworthy, at least in the start of the film, and he overestimates himself constantly. He reads situations completely wrong. But what's interesting is the character's growth trajectory in the film. He doesn't transform. He doesn't become some polished, confident version of himself by the end. He just gets a little more honest, a little less performative. And that feels true to life in a way that most coming of age arcs don't bother with. On the other hand, Tovino's character Sreekuttan, I think on paper, is one of the more interesting antagonist constructions. Not a villain specifically, but just a man with an ego, musical ambitions, and a history that makes people nervous around him. And Tovino plays this character with this physical stillness that makes every moment of actual emotion land harder. And I feel it's a thoughtful performance. The movie traces his arc and his humanity with the right instinct, and it works well for the film given the setup that the film established in the early scenes. But that said, I have issues with how the film handles the dispute between Samkutty and Kuttan. Their conflict is not truly personal, but it's an ego war. Kuttan's feud is with the college students and not specifically with Samkutty, yet the movie frames it somehow as a clash between the two in the pre-interval, and then the rest of the narrative grows on the basis of it. But regardless of the setup, the movie lands strong punches, especially in the climax. Also, I want to mention that the sequences with Vineet Srinivasan and Shan Rahman are the most enjoyable parts of the film. There's something structurally elegant about how these sequences are positioned within the movie. They arrive exactly when the film needs a change of register, especially when the central conflict has been established and the third act is about to kick in, and that's genuinely a good writing. Directorial debut and the craft. As a debutant, I'm convinced that Arun certainly has a great taste, and that's the most fundamental thing in its own. Solely the decision to open the film on a tragedy and the instinct to embed real emotional stakes inside a commercial entertainer, overall visual sensibility, plus the willingness to let comedy and the grief coexist in the same place, all of these are not just choices of someone just executing a formula. I feel that's a genuine point of view of a director who is still finding his own rhythm. There are sequences in the film where you can easily spot influences of recent Malayalam cinema, especially in the stylized movements, and I feel that is completely normal for a debut. But what I am genuinely curious about is what he will do in his second venture. Without any influences, whether he will be able to push harder emotionally in that, because I strongly feel that the moments in the film where he allows real feeling onto the screen without really retreating into comedy and without managing the audience's discomfort, those are the best moments in the film, and that instinct of a director alone is worth trusting. Now on the craft level, there's a visual logic running throughout the film which I feel is deliberate. Like the color palettes, blues and reds are used consistently in the film in ways that track the tension between the two central forces of the story. Plus the editing in the second half particularly stands out for me, as the film makes some bold choices in the climactic stretch, where it interweaves storylines that are geographically and emotionally separate in ways that amplify both the tension and the meaning of what's happening. And there are sequences where you are completely absorbed without noticing any why. Here Vishnu Vijay's score does this structural work. The music overall essentially manages the audience's emotional temperature across 2.5 hours. In every Sreekuttan's entrance, in every emotional pivot, in every other escalation, the score tells us how to feel before the scene fully explains itself. And that's the craft I genuinely admire. So now turning to the marks of this film, so I would give this one an honest 7.5 out of 10. In my opinion, Athiradi is imperfect, uneven and occasionally maddening in how it handles its own best material. And for a film that has marketed itself as a crowd-pleasing entertainer, that's a quietly profound idea to include emotions and meaning to it. And the fact that it lands so well at the end, given everything was working against it, is genuinely impressive.
Oomanam Putulanje Mirigal Nanayalle.
So now that concludes few of my discussion points and view on the film Athiradi. You too, please share your thoughts in the comment section of the video about this film and let's have a healthy discussion around it. Also, if you have enjoyed this overall review, so please show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel for more content ahead. Do follow me on my social handles at CineSamvad for short reviews and cinematic insights. Thank you for watching. We'll meet in the next one. Cheers.